Okay, let's start. Now we have session 1 about mainstreaming gender in national statistics production, country practices and lessons learned. I invite session participants, and the chair of this session 1 is Mr. Andres Vicat, Chief of the Social and Demographic Statistics Section, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe.
Thank you very much. I'm asking the presenters to join me up here, everyone, and then we can start. So, dear colleagues and friends, I'm very pleased to chair and open this session on mainstreaming gender in national statistical production. We've had a wonderful warm-up through the panel just before lunch, and it was touching upon the topic of mainstreaming gender in statistics. We had a lot of interesting thoughts about it and insights, and now we are proceeding to specific country cases of progress and advancement in this area. As you know, we need to understand how a gender lens is embedded in the entire statistical value chain, from planning, data collection, analysis, dissemination, and it is also the kind of institutional commitments and collaborations that are needed, which we will look upon. We will consider the challenges encountered and the strategies adopted to overcome them. In short, we would like to get to the point where the gender breakdown and gender issues are a natural and inherent part of work of the National Statistical Office and the National Statistical System more generally. So we have a view on these matters from 3 continents today: Europe, Asia, and Latin America, more precisely, and in this order, from Italy, China, Brazil, and Bangladesh. The value of these forums is that we get a truly global perspective, and here also the commentary and questions from several and hopefully many of you who are in the audience. And for this, I will be keeping time and reinforce the 10-minute time limit on the speakers. They have been warned, so I trust that they would appreciate a reminder from me when they have 2 minutes left, so that they can conclude comfortably. And then here we are to begin with our first speaker representing Europe and Italy, a country that has been at the forefront of gender statistics for decades. We will have with us Sara Demofonti, head of the Division for Strategic Policy and Integrated Planning at the Italian National Institute of Statistics. And the strategic plans that she is responsible for include the Gender Equality Plan and the gender budgeting. I should also say that Sara has been an active participant in many expert groups, task forces, and many forums led by international organizations. It's my great pleasure to give the floor to you. Sara, please.
Thank you, Andres, and thank you for the kind invitation to share our experiences. Always a great pleasure. ISTAT commitment to gender mainstreaming in data production has deep roots. The gender perspective in surveys, especially social surveys, has been integrated since the 1980s. Since then, this particular lens has been used to observe, measure, and understand phenomena from a perspective that takes into account the differences between women and men. More recent, however, is the effort to integrate the gender perspective into planning and reporting processes with the aim of promoting concrete actions both within and outside ISTAT to foster a cultural shift towards gender equality. ISTAT produces a vast amount of data that helps to understand the characteristic of gender inequality. Topics covered are diverse and range from discrimination to stereotypes, from time use to violence against women, to women entrepreneurs, women and trade, to name a few. This important commitment has been accompanied since 2022 by the development of planning and reporting tools that support the fight against gender inequality with action and financial commitment. In this presentation, I will focus on these last two aspects. Horizon Europe 2021-2027 is the EU's key funding program for research and innovation that tackles climate change, helps to achieve the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, and boosts the EU's competitiveness and growth. With the launch of the strategies in 2021 and the definition of the European Commission's guideline on gender equality plan, a new eligibility criterion was introduced to strengthen gender equality as a cross-cutting priority. Organizations, such as public bodies, higher education institutions, or research organizations such as the Italian National Institute of Statistics, applying for Horizon Europe funds are required to have a gender equality plan in place. A gender equality plan is a tool of gender rebalancing for research institution staff. It's considered a strategic and operational document designed to identify and eliminate gender-based disparities and discrimination within an organization. It is defined as a series of commitments and actions aimed at promoting gender equality in an organization through institutional and cultural change. The Gender Equality Plan is based on 4 building blocks that are 4 minimum mandatory process-related requirements. Be a public document. The Gender Equality Plan should be a formal document signed by the top management and disseminated within the organization. Have dedicated resources. It must include a commitment to provide sufficient resources and expertise in gender equality for implementation. Include arrangements for data collection and monitoring, must be evidence-based and founded on sex or gender disaggregated baseline data, also collected across all staff categories, and be supported by training and capacity building. Actions should address gender equality and unconscious gender biases and may include developing gender competence, establish working groups, raising awareness through workshops and communication activities. The 5 recommended content-related requirements for a gender equality plan are work-life balance and organizational culture, gender balance in leadership and decision-making, gender equality in recruitment and career progression, integration of the gender dimension into research and teaching content, measures against gender-based violence, including sexual harassment. ISTAT's Gender Equality Plan, in compliance with the fundamental requirements, contains for each thematic area objectives, actions, 1 or more specific measures identified as operational strategies to achieve each objective, institutional or operational responsible. In other words, top managers or others in the Institute's organizational charter responsible for decision-making with respect to the political direction adopted with each measure and for effectively drafting the stated measure. And then timeline and result indicators. These are some examples of objectives and action action taken from the Gender Equality Plan 2025-2027 in its second edition that you can find on the website in the English area. For the thematic area work-life balance and organizational culture, for example, one of the defined objectives is facilitate work-life reconciliation of ISTA staff, and the related action identified is promote work-life balance measures, issues, and initiatives with internet news. For the thematic area, gender balance in leadership and decision-making, one of the defined objectives is to strengthen governance on the issues of equal opportunities in leadership, and the related action defined is implement the management system for gender equality for the certification UNIPDR of ISTAT's gender equality. With regards to the thematic area, measures against gender-based violence, including sexual harassment, one of the defined objectives is promote awareness-raising initiatives on the topic, and the related action identified is design awareness-raising initiatives for staff through training courses aimed at avoiding stereotypes. Now some details on ISTAT Gender Budget Report, reporting document based on the Italian State Gender Budget Report model, adapted to the Institute's organizational accounting context, that analyzes and evaluates from a gender perspective the political and economic choices of the organization, identify the resources allocated and spent in favor of gender equality, and assess the impact of economic measures on men and women. The Gender Budget Report proposes a reclassification of expenditure according to gender, dividing it into 4 categories: neutral, gender sensitive, aim at reducing inequalities, and to be further explored. The following 2 slides provide examples of ISTAT expenses that are gender sensitive and aim at reducing inequalities. As can be seen from the chart, these 2 types of expenses in the case of ISTAT are residual and equal to 3 and 4% of total production costs. Here are some examples. Maybe I skip all the one listed. I will focus the attention only, for example, on business travel, but we analyzed also paid lectures or fees for external courses. These are considered gender-sensitive expenses, and as you can see, we have percentages that put in a different position women and men. I would like to conclude with the example of the expenses aimed at reducing inequalities, which in the case of ISTAT has been identified as that dedicated to surveys, considered an important and powerful information tool for promoting policies to combat inequalities. They amount to 3% of ISTAT production costs and are equal to more than $34 million. These expenses refer to 21 surveys with a gender perspective conducted in 2023 that generated direct costs. It means payment of interviews or for printing models and so on, questionnaires and so on. And all the 21 surveys identified are those listed in the National Statistical Program as surveys for which the production of gender-sensitive indicator is planned. Even in the case of this document, you can find it at the link in the English section of ISTAT website for further details.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It is indeed important to keep our own house in order when we try to measure gender issues more broadly in the society. And I'm pointing out that there was no special gender unit or division or department mentioned in Sarah's presentation, so we may come back to that question later on. I wish to ask you to keep your questions for the later. We will open the floor when all the presenters have concluded their presentations. So our next speaker is Ms. Lijing Zhao, the Director of the Comprehensive Analysis Division of the Department of Social Science and Technology and Cultural Statistics at the National Bureau of Statistics of China, where gender statistics is also part of her portfolio. She leads the development of the monitoring indicator system for the outline of the development of Chinese women and children. And your 10 minutes starts now. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear delegates, I'm Zhao Lijing from National Bureau of Statistics of China. Today is a day of great significance. Today is China's National Day. I'm delighted to be here in this crisp autumn season to participate in the 10th United Nations Global Forum on Gender Statistics. Regarding the discussion on Session 1, I would like to share with you the practices, experience, and the developments of China's gender statistics work. In the first part, I will introduce the history of gender statistics work in China. Since the 1980s, China has actively explored and gradually advanced gender statistics-related work. With the support of United Nations Development Fund for Women, China gradually introduced the concepts such as gender and gender statistics. In the 1990s, China promulgated and implemented the first cycle of the outline for the development of Chinese women and the monitoring and the evaluation of the goals outlined in the outline facilitated the initial establishment of China's gender statistics work mechanism. In 1995, on the eve of the Fourth World Conference on Women, China edited and published its first gender statistics material. At the same time, China actively learned from the experience of advanced countries in gender statistics development, such as Sweden. In 1998, the NBS of China and Statistics Sweden collaborated and translated the published the book Gender Statistics and used this book to organize 2 large-scale training sessions. This marked the initial stage of gender statistics in China. At the beginning of the 21st century, China promulgated and implemented the second cycle of the outline for the development of Chinese women, organized and conducted the second survey on the social statistics of Chinese women. In 2021, China promulgated and implemented the first cycle of the outline, and stating the need to implement and gradually improve the gender statistics monitoring program. In 2024, the NBS officially established the gender statistics monitoring system. This marked the development stage of gender statistics in China. After years of continuous practice, China's gender statistics work has been continuously improved. In the second part, I will introduce the current status of China's gender statistics work from the following 5 aspects. In the first feature, can be summarized as the working mechanism has been established. In 1990, China established the State Council Working Committee on Women and Children as a deliberative and coordinating body responsible for women's and children's work nationwide. This committee consists of 37 member units, and NBS is both a member unit and the unit leading the statistical monitoring work for the implementation of the outline. The second picture can be summarized as the statistical system has been continuously improved under the current National Statistical Service System of China. Various industry authorities conduct various statistical surveys, such as education, health, and social security, according to their respective job responsibilities, and in accordance with the service system approved by the NBS. The NBS regularly conducts statistical surveys on population, employment, household action, and conduct TOS, and so on. On the other hand, as the leading unit for statistical monitoring, we established gender statistics monitoring system to collect gender-related statistical data from the whole society. The third feature can be summarized as the statistical content has gradually increased. According to this system, over 2,000 gender-related statistical indicators can be obtained. The fourth feature can be summarized as the level of informatization has been continuously improved. The NBS has established a data submission and processing platform named Statistical Cloud. We can realize collection, reviewing, and storing data statistics online, and this has greatly improved the quality of data. The fifth feature can be summarized as diversified gender-related statistical products. We publish various statistical material, and we also publicly release statistical data on department's portal website. And we also publish videos and illustrations through Weibo, WeChat, and other platforms. The above has introduced the situation of our work. In the third part, I will present the gender statistics data in major areas. In the field of health, we can see in 2020, the average life expectancy of China's female population was 80.88 years, 5.51 years higher than that of women. According to United Nations World Population Project, we ranked 62nd out of 184 countries. In the field of education, the net enrollment rate of primary school age girls has remained about 99.9% since 2015, basically improved with boys, and the gender gap in compulsory education has been basically eliminated. In the field of employment, among all employment individuals in society, women account for more than 40%. In the field of social security, in 2023, the number of women participating in maternity insurance across the society reached 109 million, an increase of 55.45 million compared to 2010. Compared with the international development of gender statistics, China's gender statistics work still needs to be continuously improved. We want to improve from the following three aspects. First, First, we will continuously enriching the content of our gender statistics. And second, we plan to learn and study the standard statistics indicator sets and gender statistics diseases established by international organizations and other countries, and establish a scientifically comparable and suitable gender statistics monitoring indicator system for China. And last, we need to strengthen international cooperation and exchange on gender statistics and actively participate in conference and contribute to the development of gender statistics standard and message. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for bringing this very rich package of information about your country in such a short time. We will keep the questions for later, and now we move on to Brazil. Barbara Cobo Soares is the Deputy Coordinator of the Thematic Commission on Social Relations of Gender and Sexuality and a professor at the National School of Statistical Sciences of the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics. Gender studies are among the many focus areas of her work. Please, we are ready to hear from you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I would like to thank the organizers of this forum for the invitation to be here today. I'm very pleased to share with you some of the institutional advances we have had in the National Statistical Office recently. Yes. Well, these are the key points of my presentation, and I am to cover them all within my 10 minutes, I promise. Historically, we have produced sex disaggregated data from our main social surveys. The importance of the census is that it's the only survey in Brazil to provide data on household living conditions that covers all our 5,700 municipalities, as well as marginalized small groups like traditional communities and people living in urban settlements. Furthermore, our integrated household survey system recently incorporated advances in a gender perspective. This includes the reformulation of time use statistics, and for the first time, we realized the demographic and health survey, the first time that the National Statistical Office realized it. This survey included a module on violence against women. Since the 90s, the Social Indicator Report has produced indicators across the main dimensions of quality life in areas as work, education, poverty, income, etc., through the lens of inequality, considering the intersectionality of gender and race whenever possible. Finally, we are currently in the third edition of our triennial gender report, the latest of which was released in 2024. And this report is based on the minimal set of gender indicators, a clear result of Brazil's participation in the Interagency Group of Gender Statistics since 2012. Well, here I wanted to highlight the critical importance of this forum in strengthening gender statistics production. They require us to establish partnerships to improve our output and in our harmonized and comparable direction, and contributed to advocate for resources to address information gaps. It's important to say that we are taking advantage of the favorable political climate for gender issues now in Brazil to advance discussions in the SDG indicators that require more intensive dialogue with several actors, specifically indicators 5.51 and 5A2. But the key institutional novelty at the IBGE is that I want to share with you today is the creation of the Commission on Gender and Sexuality in 2024. This commission has a mandate in terms of mainstreaming gender in an effort to transform gender from a specialized subject into a core analytical dimension used throughout our work. This perspective is applied across all statistical and geoscientific operations, as well as our internal support and training activities. Reporting directly to the IBGE presidents, the Commission performs a cross-cutting function that impacts every other directorate within the National Statistical Office. Beyond its primary objective, some important aspects of the Commission include its composition, which features representatives from all IBGE directorates, and a 4-year initial governance structure. This structure is intended to incentivize participation and leadership in the process of mainstreaming gender within the National Statistical Office. In terms of key attributions, the Commission is responsible for receiving and answering requests, coordinate institutional initiatives on gender issues, proposing new investigations to fill identified data gaps, and supporting work plans as supporting the Human Resources Department on matters such as harassment prevention and home office decisions. Our initial main lines of work include the elaboration of a gender mainstreaming guide and statistical program for the National Statistical Office. We are also focused on the improvement of time use statistics, which involves 2 main actions. First, a reformulation of the time use activities model regularly collected in the labor force survey, our PNAD continua, and the incorporation of a light time use diary into our expenditure survey. Both of these surveys are currently in the field this year, with results expected to be released the beginning 2026. We are also advancing household investigation on sexual orientation and gender identities, given the strong national demand for this data in Brazil, which was initially released as experimental statistics from the sample household surveys. Furthermore, we are joining efforts in capacity building. We recently co-organized an international seminar on time use statistics with the Ministry of Social Development and the Ministry of Women, the ministries that are responsible for our new national care policy, along with the Institute for Applied Economic Research and the University of São Paulo. The event featured strong international collaboration, including representatives from our partner statistical office in Chile, Colombia, and the UN Regional Office for Latin America. We also support an academic gender research group at the National School of Statistical Science and participate in service training activities within the IBGE. Another key line of work involves closing statistical gaps in several critical areas. These include economic and agricultural surveys and data on territorial climate change, which was a subject for discussion at the Interagency Group meeting in Mexico last year. Finally, we are developing a gender report based on the 2022 census data, which focuses on municipal indicators and specific marginalized groups, including indigenous people, quilombolas, persons with disabilities, and residents of urban settlements. We are also working on a collection documenting the historical contributions of women to the execution of the IBGE's demographic census, dating back for the first ones. And to conclude, we can summarize the main challenge for the Commission in 3 major areas. The first one, transcending a traditional organizational structure that impedes a transversal approach. The second, building technical capacity in gender analysis within an institution with a significant male majority on its workforce. For instance, the Directorate of Surveys has a male representation exceeding 70%. And third, the third major area in terms of challenge is, of course, resource constraints, financial, technological, and women, a common challenge faced by nearly every national statistical office and UN agencies present here, I guess. So, I'd like to thank you one more time, and I think that summarizing the main message I wanted to share with you this afternoon regarding the recent developments in gender mainstreaming at the National Statistical Office in Brazil. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you very much, Barbara. We are noticing, of course, the important role of partnerships among government agencies and among other players in the advancement of gender statistics in your country, and in particular the commission that you are using also for this purpose to advance the measurement of gender issues. We are now turning to our fourth speaker. Asma Akhter is the Deputy Director of Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, where she leads the Gender Statistics Cell. She played a central role in conducting the nationally representative time use survey of 2021 and the first household production satellite account. She will talk about mainstreaming gender statistics in her country. So please, you have the floor. Oh, she's here.
Respected Chair, distinguished speaker, participants, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today I will share with you about how Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics is working for mainstreaming gender statistics. Actually, I will try my best to conclude in time. Already our chair informed about me that I am working in Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics for gender statistics and how we are working. Sorry, I am using this, yeah. So in Bangladesh, we did work on gender statistics that, in our country, Government of Bangladesh recognized in the constitution that to reduction of gender discrimination, actually inequality between women and men, and as well as the promotion of women participation in every sphere of life. Women who constitute more than half of the population in our country are treated as equal with men in the constitution and in all spheres of public life. So you know that gender statistics, which is measuring and monitoring the realities between women and men and reflect the progress and the changing role of women and men. So gender statistics is very important for us to know how Bangladeshi women and men are getting the equal opportunity in every sphere of life. In Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, to give attention on gender statistics because NSO, as NSO of BBS, we are responsible for developing gender statistics. To focus on the gender statistics, we in BBS developed a separate cell who are working on these. That is, a gender statistics cell is developed in 2017. And after that, we are regularly working on this issue. Actually, before that, we did gender statistics, some sort of report and compilation. But after that, when we developed a separate cell and they are working on this issue, the major activities of this cell is to produce gender statistics, likely to conduct regular basis the survey which is actually in the gender perspective, and compile different type of gender data. You know that different department in our country, they are producing this data. But as a NSO, we are responsible to use their data as a compilation report. We did it in our publication. And after that, we have to coordinate by this cell, gender statistics cell, who are working to coordinate with different organizations like development partner, different type of civil society organization and media also. And sometimes we arrange some seminar meeting with different type of stakeholder to know how we are working and what there is a gap to understand and to address in our production of the data. And actually for mainstreaming this gender data, we are mainstreaming in all stages of data production, like different type of census survey data. We produce sex desegregated data, and to monitor the different type of indicator like gender indicator in SDG and other set of indicator. We ensure from this cell to incorporate in our upcoming services census. Actually, for gender mainstreaming, the strategy I will present it in brief. Our constitution, article 28, that ensures us the equal rights of women and men. And in 2011, we developed a national women development policy under Ministry of Women and Children Affairs. They did the emphasis on the production of gender statistics to monitor the progress, and emphasis to actually to reduce the discrimination and to reduce the gender gap. So after the National Women Development Policy, there was a national action plan to implement this women development policy. 48 ministries they took initiative on gender studies, such as that gender budgeting. Actually different ministries they published we need to focus on analysis how the expenditure of national budget we can utilize. That is the based on the gender report we can get the sex desegregated information also in different publication. And for time-bound information, we need different type of work like time use survey and valuation of women. We can use get this picture from time use data. And gender budget report actually done by the finance division of our country, and they prioritize gender equality through the budgeting process. So it is actually a great achievement for us to know how the budgeting expenditure is going on. And different type of ministry we have gender focal point who are actually responsible for these gender indicator, and they are coordinate with different ministry by this focal point officer. And actually in BBS we are working also for gender mainstreaming. Before that, I want to say that in our 5-year plan, also they are using our gender strategies. That gender data is recognized as a priority in our national plan of action. Here we see that in the every 5-year plan, gender strategy has a chapter in our plan. This chapter actually focus on different collection of sex desegregated data and the framework where the data from BBS they are using and they are integrating with the policy how to progress this indicator. And to implement the strategy that is aligned with CEDAW and the SDG indicator, BBS actually responsible to generate sex desegregated data to report on this national progress. And the voluntary national review, the report last in 2025, and the Beijing Plus 30 national review report we did by underprinting the robust gender statistics using as a participatory approach. So we work on it and we use this gender data. And for BBS, actually we ensure different type of survey census that we can get the data by sex segregation and also gender data. Aligned with SDG monitoring framework, we have a SDG tracker where we can monitor our different type of SDG gender indicator and the progress also. Gender statistics in our national strategy for BBS, that is NSDS, National Strategy for the Development of Statistics, we did, and there is a focus on gender statistics. The upcoming revision of this NSDS, we have the regular publication of critical data like violence against women survey, and unpaid care, domestic work, among other different surveys. So this is actually focus on our priority. And consideration of the gender statistics in the upcoming revision of our Statistics Act in 2013. Actually, we are revising and we are going to plan to focus on gender statistics in our act also for the production. And close collaboration, we are working with Ministry of Women and Children Affairs for this advancing policy, basically for evidence-based policy. I will go short. Our driving initiative that we are working in BBS, that we conducted time use survey with the technical support of Ion Women, and we did it in 2021, and this last year 2024 we conducted violence against women survey. We compiled gender statistics by using different type of information from different organizations also. And a remarkable work we did this year actually by using the time use survey data, that is the value chain. We use this data, and first we developed the household production satellite account on unpaid domestic care work. And by this work, we get the information how we can value actually the recognition of unpaid work. And we did policy briefs issue on education and employment. And gender module in our labor force survey and HIES household income expenditure survey we included. And of course, for valuing the gender data, we organized the user-producer dialogue to minimize the gender gap actually for evidence-based policy making. We mentioned about the time use survey information, that first time we get information for SDG 5.4.1 for recognize unpaid work, and which gives us the scenario of unpaid work burden. So we get this information from this survey. And we see that in our information that in Bangladesh, women spend 7.3 times more than men in a day. So it is a huge work burden for women in the unpaid sector. Actually, for women spend 5.9 hours a day, while you see that women spend only 0.8 hours a day. So there is a huge gender gap on unpaid work. And household production satellite account, I already mentioned that estimate first time we monetary value of unpaid work, and it was actually pioneer effort. And we see that our next slide, the economic value of women in unpaid work in 2021. That is, we use the time use survey data and the labor force survey data. That the current GDP of 2021, women unpaid work is 16.14% of the national GDP. So it is a large, I think, volume indeed. This is the first time we valued this, and it is a recognition. I think it will be very helpful. Yeah, I'll do it. And violence against women survey, last year we did. We see that by this survey, first time we included technology facilitated violence, and we get the picture of technology facilitated violence. And for the violence, we did the third round, and we get 24.4% of physical or sexual, psychological related violence by partner. So you see that in last 12 months, it is a large actually amount. And capacity building effort for BBS, we conducted technical training on BBS staff, and we also conducted training for different ministries, CSO, and media to actually report the gender statistics. And collaboration with UN Women for the strengthening gender statistics in Bangladesh. And we reported to support voluntary national review of SDG actually. And future plan in the upcoming year, we are going to deep dive survey for violence against women to understand the root cause of the violence. And we plan to conduct gender and environment survey in this year, and compilation of report time use survey to monitor the progress. Gender-based violence survey, which will be helpful for monitoring the progress. And first time we will conduct gender inequality index and facts and figure. Of course, we have the plan to develop a gender web portal so that we can get information in one platform. And some key challenges we are facing now. Actually, you know already our previous speaker said about the constraints, and that is resource constraints. Of course, it is a challenges for strengthening gender statistics. Capacity gaps also, we have also gap, and some other different ministry who are producing gender statistics also they have the gap. And collaboration, we need different type of collaboration from different organization who are working on it, so that they are working separately, and sometimes we have a gap, and some indicate we are facing that they are producing and BBS also producing, so some gap is here, so we need to overcome these challenges. And thank you, that is my presentation. I apologize for my time constraint. Thank you.
Indeed, big thanks to all our 4 presenters who managed to bring the wealth of information on gender statistics to us within a very short time. So I would even say that with the efficiency how they managed to get their words, their message across, we can say that gender statistics in these countries is probably in very good hands. Certainly they can make very convincing presentations. And we, of course, saw many important dimensions here about partnerships, about collaboration across government agencies, about the fact that there are dedicated budgets available, interagency commissions established, and the National Statistical Office needs to position itself in all of this to play continue to play an important role. I am sure that the audience has a lot more issues to raise, maybe some specific questions to ask from the presenters. So, and I saw you were listening all very attentively, so it is now a good opportunity to look at the notes that you have made during all these 4 presentations, and share your thoughts and questions and comments with everyone. So I open the floor now. Gogita, please. Georgia.
Thanks to all the presenters for delivering excellent presentations. I have one question for representative of ISTAT. I can say that your presentation showed how ISTAT has moved beyond just collecting gender statistics, and how comprehensive approach, as you mentioned, from work-life balance to addressing stereotypes, provides an excellent model for all of us, for another NSOs. So I have a question related institutional challenges. Given that your gender equality plan requires accessing funding from Europe and involves implementing a gender management system for certification, what have been the most significant institutional barriers you have encountered in promoting gender equality within your institution, within INSTAT? is that, and what strategies proved most effective in overcoming resistance to change? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We take a few more questions, and I think this one that you posed would also apply to some extent to all the presenting countries. So there was somebody. Yes, please. Could you please introduce yourself also briefly?
Yeah, I'm Laura Vasquez from INEGI, Mexico. Thank you for very interesting presentations. Several of you mentioned the topic of violence against women and statistics on this topic. I know that tomorrow we will have a session dedicated to this topic, yet I'd like to know if and how your countries have incorporated actions to measure and produce statistics on digital violence in general and digital violence directed towards women. Thank you.
Thank you. I think before we start forgetting the first questions, I'm now giving the floor to all the presenters to respond first about significant institutional barriers, and second about or technology-facilitated violence against women, or digital violence in the digital domain, so to say. Yes, and maybe we begin with Asma, with you, as you are the first or the last speaker.
Thank you for your excellent question. Actually, in BBS, we conducted in 2024 that Violence Against Women survey, and we included questions about technology facilitated violence in our survey, and we published already key findings, and soon we will publish the full report in our website. When we work on this issue, actually we face challenges to get some actually guideline how we can incorporate in our question, and that was our challenges when working. So we did a workshop on our questionnaire, existing questionnaire, and get some knowledge from different stakeholders, and we get information how they are guided us to do this question. So actually when we incorporate in our questionnaire, we see that any type of text message, video message, and some harassment related to the smartphone or the internet, they can buy a phone. They get this type of harassment or some content, video. It was considered in our questionnaire, in our module, and how they can address this actually. So the reporting system also collected in our survey. So we see that at the time of the data collection, we highly make it very confidential as a ethical issue. And you know that when we conducted this survey also, we had to confidential the name of the survey also, the status of women survey, when we did in the field work. So technology facilitated violence, they reported by our who collected the information. So if you can see in our final report will be published, and we will incorporate in our questionnaire methodology also in our report. So technology facilitated violence is still a challenging, and we get some question about our country also. Thank you.
So, thank you for the questions. Very interesting. I would like to start with Georgia. Let me say that we are lucky because we didn't face the so many barriers or difficulties during the time. Maybe in the past, the economic sector within the institute was more, resistant to introduce the gender perspective through the surveys, but it's really something something that happened in the past. It's not the reality now. Let me say in addition that in order to not segregate gender statistics to a small portion of our organizational chart, the gender perspective at ISTAT is something that is widespread all over the surveys. And recently is also a lens that we use to integrate the production of gender statistics with other tools, such as the ones that I show in the presentation. So there are not so many barriers, you know, and digital violence is not yet integrated.
The so-called digital violence of the problem of technology facilitating violence against women stems primarily from the disparity between men and women in their ability to access and master digital technology. Nevertheless, in China today, there is no notable difference between genders regarding access to digital sport. Consequently, we don't regard digital violence as a particular critical issue in China at present. Yes.
About violence against women. Yeah, we have actually in Brazil we have a law called Maria da Penha. And this law have a definition of psychological violence that is broad enough to include digital acts like constant monitoring, stalking, cyber stalking included, humiliation via social media, message apps. We also have a law called Carolina Dickmann, also a name of woman because they suffered of this type of violence. The Carolina Dickmann law is a Brazilian legislation that specifically criminalized cyber crimes, especially the unauthorized hacking of computer system and the theft or leaking of private digital data, like personal photos, and it was created after a high-profile case involving the actress in 2012. So the administrative registers at the police and the health system and the service, when they asked about the violence, the psychological violence, one of the items that in the service, specifically the household survey in health, we asked separately, psychological, sexual, and physical, and it's items, little items that the person has to answer yes or no for each one. And one of these is if did someone insult you or use the social medias to threaten you and things like that.
Thank you very much. And maybe it is worthwhile here to remind ourselves also about the initiative by UN Women to develop technology-facilitated violence against women guidelines over the coming years. So there will be some international reference point to all of you when you are looking into this matter, but we have to move on with the society and consider all the different challenges that come up. So there were a few more hands coming, and Aurelia from Moldova, you have the floor.
Thank you, dear presenters, for the presentations. I would have two questions. One to our Bangladesh colleague. I have seen in your presentation a few records or items, meaning that you have conducted the violence against women survey and you are still planning to do 2 more rounds, but with the 2-year frequency. Usually the methodologies or the guidelines we are following as statisticians when doing this kind of surveys, these surveys are aimed to measure the prevalence of violence. So prevalence of violence meaning the magnitude of the phenomena of violence in the society. So from our experience, the violence phenomena in the society is to change throughout the generations. In 2 years, it cannot give you different results for the prevalence in the community you are conducting this survey. So I wanted to ask, on the other hand, you on the last slide you have shown that you have constraints, like many of us, regarding the human resources we have in our NSOs, insufficient people, and the resource mobilization problem. So what is the justification of planning of these short frequency or very frequent violence against women or violence-related surveys? Maybe they have different focuses. Sorry, I didn't get maybe the idea. But what would be the justification for planning with very short frequency these kind of surveys, which usually cost, and they are sensitive and they need ethical preparation and communication with the data users, so with the data respondents. And the second question is for our Italian colleague. I don't know what is the proportion of women and men in your ISTAT, but in our office we have 86% women working in the NSO. So what would be the added value of a gender equality plan within our institution? Because we women are also at on management functions, but also on executing functions. We are the majority of the staff being working. So to measure our work-life balance, but having a few men. So what would be, for example, in our case, the added value of such a plan? Thank you.
Very pertinent questions. We give Asma and Sarah a bit of time to collect their thoughts and for us all to digest the very interesting fact that you brought to us about the gender composition of the National Bureau of Statistics in Moldova. There was one more wish. Yes, please.
Yes, if I may to ask a question to Ms. Akhter also. I'm from the World Bank. My name is Saida Ismailov. So my question is about, you mentioned about 16% of unpaid work is as contribution to GDP. Which is a pretty significant number if we look from the policy perspective. So my question is, in terms of methodology, what methodological guidance you used? And second one, is your agencies thinking about inclusion of unpaid work into the GDP calculation as well in the future, or maybe you are doing already, it's at least partially? Thank you.
Thank you for these two questions. Actually, firstly, I will answer the question to conduct the violence against women in the upcoming 2027. Actually, when we did violence against women survey, you see in 2024, the frequencies, the prevalence is very high. Actually, it was conducted only for women 15 years and above. We did it. And we have a data demand from our government also, how actually violence is against the women and men also. You know, the 16 goal, we have some indicator for both population, which include both part of men and women. The government, they also demand Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics to know about how we are getting information by women and men also. So they are requesting us to know about this information, and we have a plan now that in the next round we will incorporate women part as well as men part to understand the violence in this area. And the second question is for a household production satellite account. This figure actually high in compared to our national GDP. That is, we did this work with the help of UN Women, and we get that assistance from ADB also. They worked with us. We, as a thematic group, we 3 organizations worked on this issue. We followed the UNEC guideline, that is evaluation of unpaid work, and we followed the replacement cost approach, input approach. We see our result in 3 methods: generalist, wage approach, specialist, and hybrid also. But the recommendation was that we can use this number, that is 16.14, that is a hybrid approach here we mentioned. By using this type of approach, we reported in our publication. And when we use this calculation, we got the information from labor force survey. Because labor force survey, they collected the wage rate for the paid work. And the time use survey, our area was unpaid work for household, that is domestic work and the care work. We evaluate these 2 type of code. For international classification of activities for time use statistics, our major division 3 and 4 we address in this household production satellite account. Thank you.
In our case, we are women are the 60% of the staff. The difference, it's not so big as in your case, but I think that it's not a matter of numbers, but a matter of institutional and cultural change that you want to promote and want to push for within and outside the Institute. The plan contains not only measures and actions to reduce gender inequality within the organization, but also to promote the fight to inequalities outside. For example, with training or other measures dedicated to users and other stakeholders. So I think that we have to look more to the visibility we want to promote, the messages we want to launch to the community that look at us, instead of watching if there is a not so good compensation in terms of numbers within the Institute.
Thank you. We still have an opportunity to hear from you. So please introduce yourself as well.
Ghalia from UAE. I would like to ask China and Brazil and some question for all. Okay. For China, you mentioned that there is a gender statistic monitoring system. And I know that in China there is a lot also of women institution, like All China Women Federation, and also other entities. Who is the owner of this data? It is the women entities, or it is the statistic, or they have authority to access this data? And for the other question for Brazil, you mentioned mapping based on the current initiatives. Who also put this initiative? Who is the owner for the input? This is my question.
Thank you. Important question about the different data providers here. Anybody else who wishes to raise a question or provide a comment, observation from your country maybe? If not, I'll give the opportunity to respond. It was for you? For you, yes.
The gender-related statistics belong to different departments in China, such as Ministry of Education, own the data of school and students. And the Women Foundation is the unity. And it has the right to obtain the data, like NBS. And NBS, I said, we in China we established the committee called the State Council Working Committee, and we collect all departments' data, and we publish different gender statistics in our material, and all the departments have the rights to obtain the data. Okay. And my colleague can explain more.
Okay, thank you for your question. Regarding the question about who is the owner of the gender data, the National Bureau of Statistics of China, as the official organization of government statistics, owns this data, and other administrative departments are also obligated to share their data with the NBS.
Okay, but this system you mentioned, they have direct access? Each entity that working on gender balance, they have access to the data directly without asking you? This is my questions.
As for other entities, if they need to use the data, they can collaborate with the NSO, and we can share the data to them.
So they don't have direct access?
Yes.
Okay.
I think in this question it would be important to understand direct access to what, because when something is produced and published, it becomes public and anybody can have access. When you ask about access, then my understanding was that essentially you mean access to something, a data set containing individual records from which statistics is produced, and there are certainly constraints to have access to this type of data sources. But when a statistical office puts something out as a result, it becomes public and accessible to everyone who is interested. So at least if the operations are according to what we call the fundamental principles of official statistics.
See, actually, because we also have monitoring system, because I need to compare also what we have with other to see which is best practice. And actually, some data considered as confidential data. However, it is important to let the other entities who is working in this field to have this access. But it's not going to the public. That's why I'm asking, because you need to do some pre-action for some cases. That's why I would like to ask. I know that if it is public, everyone can access it. But I mean, before publish it, do I have access directly to the system? Because from our side, we have direct access to give them based on the privilege.
Yes, well, we can, of course, continue the conversation about what is supposed to be confidential, but in terms of if a result produced by a statistical office is official statistics, then by definition it has to be published, otherwise it is something else. And then, of course, there are good grounds of keeping some information not published, but that would not be official statistics then. Right, we are still having a little bit of time left, and I would, if I don't see anyone, I would also offer the opportunity for our presenters, if they wish to add anything that was remaining in their mind still that they would like to share with you, and then we would proceed with a conclusion. If there are any thoughts, just offering the opportunity. Yes, sir.
Just to remark the importance that gender statistics can't stand alone in the general environment of our societies. They need to be supported by other tools that are fundamental to widespread cultural elements that can facilitate, for example, the use of gender statistics from policymakers, but also a better understanding from the society.
Thank you. I think we are coming to the conclusion here. Then let me try to put out a few thoughts that resonate after hearing these 4 country experiences. It seems to me that in all cases we are having contexts that are conducive for the development of gender statistics, both from the point of view of institutional setting and the overall political environment. It is especially important when countries are wishing to improve gender statistics through embarking on heavy and expensive surveys, like a time use survey would be, also violence against women surveys. So they need really political support, and the breakthrough can be achieved in this way. What is important also that the focal points for gender statistics and the units, if they have been established, seems to have generated already this experience of working with a broad set of partnerships. Be it academia or other government structures that provide the data or use the data. And in this way, I would see even the gender statisticians as paving the way for colleagues in other specific substantive areas, because this is the main idea towards which official statistics is developing right now, to establish stronger partnerships with other data providers, and also always listen to the users to whom these statistical products are targeted. So in a way, in the area of gender, this type of interaction has been well established and is going on, and it is good to see how all these institutional challenges are overcome. Sarah, on my right here, has even mentioned that there aren't any institutional challenges left. So there are many countries that have really proceeded very far in mainstreaming the gender issues in their offices and in the statistical system. Also, what we see is that countries produce a lot of information. We had a whole set of findings presented from China here that are all available, and we need to keep paying attention to the ways how these are communicated, including tailor-made products for the users, but also including those web portals where the gender keyword can lead to the whole wealth of data that is relevant for gender issues. And then, of course, also echoing what was said by the government representatives at the high-level panel this morning, countries need proper policy documents, and the statistics should help to shape them. So it is important to keep in mind also the questions that the policymakers are grappling at any given time, so that there is data available, not just available, but made communicated in an understandable way, which makes it usable for developing those policy documents. Well, it is the one point that I was hoping to hear more and was not so prominent is the need really for the statistical systems to integrate the data from different sources, which is where most of the countries are moving step by step. So at one day there would not be an opportunity to expand the gender statistics by getting even more ambitious and heavy surveys, but to make sure that all the data that government holds is used for the good of statistics, including gender statistics. So in conclusion, I advise everyone to consult the materials presented, to think about these matters, and also to thank everyone for this session, the four presenters, everyone who posed questions and was listening attentively in the room. So a big round of applause to everyone for this session. Thank you. The session is concluded. Please announce what comes next.
Thanks to the first session participants. Now we have a coffee break. We will return at 3:30 with session 2, and please come back on time. Dear guests, please come in. We should start session 2. So now we have session 2 about enablers in gender data system. I invited session participants, and the chair of this session 2 is Ms. Shaida Badi, Managing Director, Open Data Watch. She is participating remotely. Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. Thank you.
In DC, when it's still a little bit dark outside. I'm delighted to be with you today, even if not in person, in the beautiful Tbilisi. In this session today, we will be looking at the enablers for building better gender data systems. I really like this word. It's a great word, enabler, because it says it all, that without them, we cannot really build and deliver the data that we need for gender equality and sustainable development. We will cover key enablers throughout the data value chain, from production level, getting data used, and impact for building better policies. And just because I'm here and I'm a big champion for open data, I want to also emphasize an important element of enabler is really open data, and I hope we will be discussing that as well. We have a great lineup of speakers, and I will introduce them to you. They are stars in the field and may really not need much introduction. They have very impressive bios, but to save time and get going with our session today, I will summarize their names and bios. So let's start with Maria Isabel Cobos. Maria Isabel is the chief of the Social and Gender Statistics section at the UN Statistics Division with 17 plus years in the UN system. She's led global work on gender migration, legal identity, and maternal mortality, and has authored several publications on these issues. Next, we have Sophie Keneally. Sophie is a policy analyst at Paris 21, where she leads work on gender data capacity and data use. She began her career in migration and human rights and has co-authored several reports on gender statistics and data capacity. Then we have Andrea Llerena. Andrea is the Regional Statistics Advisor at the UN Women for Latin America and the Caribbean and leads the regional work, including the flagship Women Count program. She has worked across UN agencies, the IDB and the World Bank, and is also an economist and a PhD candidate. Then we have Lucia Escuro. Lucia is a senior gender affairs officer at ECLAC, focusing on women's autonomy and gender equality policies. She supports countries on care systems and monitors gender progress towards the 2030 agenda, building on a career spanning UNFPA, academia, and national institutions. And then last but not least is our dear friend Petra Nemias. And Petra is the Chief Population and Social Statistics at ESCAP, where she strengthens statistical systems across Asia Pacific, especially in civil registration, migration, and gender. She brings deep UN experience, including UNHCR and UN Population Division, and holds a PhD in sociology from Princeton. So this session, as I promised you, we have 5 stars to tell us more about the data systems. And in today's session, the style that has been chosen is very special. We call it dynamic lightning talks. And that means really expecting short and very punchy and to the point and impactful talks so that we can have enough time to come back to you with some question and answers. So let me start first with Maria Isabel. And Maria Isabel, if we can get you set up for being the first speaker. And the question that I have for you is that for implementing the second global survey of national gender statistics program in 2022. This is a very important survey. My question for you is, in a nutshell, what did the latest global survey on gender statistics reveal about progress and persistent challenges? How has the UN Statistical Commission helped move the needle on gender mainstreaming in statistics? Maria Isabel, coming back to you, and you will have 5 minutes, if you could, to take us through this question. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me start with the Global Survey on Gender Statistics that, as you mentioned, the latest one was conducted in 2022. The latest one was conducted in 2022 by the UN Statistics Commission, alongside the UN Regional Commissions and the Interagency and Expert Group on Gender Statistics. Firstly, the institutionalization has seen remarkable progress. 86% of countries had legal provisions for that mandating them for the production or dissemination of gender data. 68% had adopted strategies or action plans for gender statistics. The number of countries with mandated funding from national budgets for gender statistics has seen a huge increase from 13% in 2012 to 69% in 2022. Also, the NSOs have evolved in their structure from reliance in a single focal point to more integrated models, as we saw in the previous session, assigning responsibilities across different units and establishing dedicated gender statistics office in line ministries as well. Collaboration between data users and producers also was strengthened, with 61% of countries engaging regularly with ministries. Secondly, the data availability has improved. For the 52 gender-specific SDG indicators, the availability of data rose to 56% in 2024, up from just 26% in 2016, so a 30 percentage point increase in less than a decade. This demonstrates concerted efforts within the statistical policy and policy communities. Of course, despite these advances, the survey also laid bare a number of persistent challenges that cut across the entire statistical production process. First, institutional culture. Many NSOs still lack a gender-responsive culture, with staff that are often unaware of the importance of gender statistics, and also they suffer from high staff turnover, which results in loss of know-how and expertise. Second, funding constraints. Producing high-quality statistics is very resource-intensive, and many NSOs operate under constrained budgets, with gender statistics often not at the top of the priority of the institutions. And we are seeing setbacks this year with recent funding cuts overall for data and statistics, and the Gender Snapshot 2025 revealed that 7 out of 10 NSOs are seeing funding cuts. There are also persistent data gaps that remain and that are critical, particularly for SDGs indicators on women's land rights, unpaid care work, sexual and reproductive health, and mobile phone ownership. So intersectional data, which disaggregate beyond sex and to integrate other characteristics like age, migration status, and disability, also remain scarce. The second part of your question about the UN Statistical Commission and how it has been a driving force behind important advancements cannot be underestimated. It has driven conceptual and methodological reviews and development to ensure that our statistics are free from gender bias. And decisively, in 2020, it took the decision of requesting to integrate the gender perspective into all its work. Following this mandate, UNSD has done analysis of official reports, side events, background documents, and decisions of the 54th, 55th, and 56th session of the Commission. And we have found that gender considerations are being embedded in statistical discussion, even when gender statistics is not explicitly in the agenda. And this is evident across a broad spectrum of statistical domains, also in in those that are not traditional for gender issues like data stewardship, open data, innovation and modernization, and national accounts or data science. The Commission also designated the Interagency and Expert Group on Gender Stats to oversee and monitor the mainstreaming efforts, promoting global strengthening of gender statistics at the national level. And through a collaborative effort, it has developed the guidance notes on integrating gender into traditionally underrepresented fields like trade, business, and climate change. And this initiative fosters dialogue among economic and environmental statisticians, both within NSO and across other data-producing institutions. The Commission also requested the collaboration of the Commission, the Statistical Commission, with the collaboration of the Status of Women, to establish a minimum set of indicators so that international compilation and dissemination would be facilitated. Just to give you examples, in 2011, the Commission requested the development for a manual to integrate the gender perspective. In 2013, it established the minimum set of gender indicators. In 2014, it endorsed the guidelines on violence against women statistics. In 2017, it endorsed the guidelines for producing statistics on asset ownership from a gender perspective. And it has also progressively advanced the development of time use statistics. In 2016, it endorsed the International Classification of Activities on Time Use Statistics. And recently, in 2024, it approved a revised guide to producing statistics on time use to better account for unpaid and care work. These efforts reflect broader commitment to embedding gender considerations throughout statistical programs. And in conclusion, while the latest global survey demonstrates significant progress, crucial challenges remain, particularly concerning consistent funding, legal mandates, and data utilization. The UN Statistical Commission, through its long-standing commitment and concrete initiatives, continues to be a driving force in pushing forward gender mainstreaming. But addressing the remaining gaps requires sustained investment, stronger institutional frameworks, and enhanced collaboration to protect progress up to now and to truly unlock the potential of gender data to drive transformative change for gender equality. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Maria Isabel. And we really value, I must say, the global survey. And I hope that you would be planning to run another one for us to measure progress and also what has been the effect of the pushbacks in the recent time. We really also appreciate your effort for keeping this agenda in front of the UN Statistical Commission, which is our highest level of governance body. So thank you for that, and thank you for reporting on it. That's tremendously important. Now coming to you, Sophie, the question that I have for you is regarding the Gender Data Outlook, which is a fantastic research document that you have done in 2024 with UN Women. And the question is that what are some of the trends and insights that have emerged from the Gender Data Outlook at the country level in order for us to better understand the enabling environment for gender data? And where do you see the strongest enablers and what gaps remain? So over to you, Sophie. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Shada. So this is a really timely moment to ask these questions. And I say this for 2 reasons. Firstly, as I mentioned yesterday, it's 1 year on since the launch of the Gender Data Outlook. So it's a meaningful moment to unpack some of those trends that we identified at global level, at country level. At the same time, the Gender Data Outlook is perhaps more pertinent today than it was even a year ago. I'm preaching to the converted, but of course, with tightened purses on official development assistance and growing scrutiny towards all things gender, the questions of which enablers to invest in a given context and which gaps should be most urgently addressed could not be more relevant. So the Gender Data Outlook, a measure of gender data capacity across 4 different pillars, sets out to answer this question quite specifically. So today I'll start with 4 trends that we notice at global level and scrutinize a little bit what they actually look like at country level. I should also note that Papa Sek is also in the audience from UN Women's side, so please, any difficult questions is just this first table in the middle. So my first trend relates to scores across the 3 pillars included in the index. So that's enabling environment for gender data, production, and accessibility. What we're seeing is that on average, countries score highest on gender data production and lowest on accessibility. This reflects well on efforts made in the past decades to produce more gender data, but also point towards the need for investments to be focused a lot of the time on making that data accessible to users. However, while countries do tend to score higher on production, we should not forget that this is a trend and not a rule. We have countries like Chile or Azerbaijan, which score fairly evenly across those pillars, and countries like Slovakia, which excel on accessibility, but perhaps lag behind on production and enabling environment. So my first message when we look at country level is just that the decisions of precisely where we should make investments and where these investments are most urgent really needs to be made at country level with country partners. The second trend relates to the relationship between overall statistical capacity, as measured by the World Bank Statistical Performance Indicators, and gender data capacity, according to the Gender Data Outlook. We do see that there is a moderate positive correlation between the two, suggesting that a strong emphasis on gender data capacity is part of a broader commitment to robust statistical systems. Again, while we do see this positive correlation, this is driven by countries with relatively weaker statistical systems. In these countries, improvements in foundational statistical capacity seem to have a significant impact on gender data capacity. However, this impact diminishes among countries with stronger statistical systems. In these countries that are already scoring high, specialized interventions may be needed in order to enhance gender data capacity. So again, the types of investments that we prioritize in lower scoring countries differs quite significantly to those proposed for higher scoring countries. My third trend to pick up on today is the budget. So we see that countries with a regular budget for gender data tend to perform better overall than countries that do not have a regular domestic budget. In fact, countries with regular funding for gender statistics perform almost twice as well on key elements of gender data capacity, such as NSO staffing, statistical laws, and NSO coordination. However, while we refer to domestic budgets as a driver, which they certainly are, we often know that they are not enough, as Maria Isabel also mentioned. A 2024 study by Data2X and Open Data Watch concludes that most lower middle-income countries with gender data in their statistical plans rely on funders for more than half of gender data activities. So while regular domestic budgets are a driver that emerges at global level, the reality is that in many countries, domestic budgets are unlikely sufficient to create and sustain effective gender data systems. And finally, trend 4, cooperation and collaboration. So a common factor or trend among high scorers, what we might refer to as a driver, is regular user-producer dialogues and coordination between the National Statistical Office and the wider national statistical system. Admittedly, this final driver of gender data capacity, cooperation and coordination, appears to be slightly more of a rule than a trend. However, what we are seeing through Paris 21's wider work is that what those specific mechanisms for collaboration and cooperation are likely varies quite significantly. So this depends on skills, mandates, and resources, as well as the wider political economy of gender equality. For example, how that coordination is formalized, how formal or informal it is, and who leads that cooperation. So these global insights are really important in telling us what typically works, which is a pivotal starting point for policy and programming action. At the same time, when we dig deeper into the Gender Data Outlook country-level results, we see that each country has quite a different gender data journey, and therefore interventions in each country differ significantly. Over to you, Shada. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sophie, and really value the the learnings from the Gender Data Outlook and the work that's been done by UN Women and Paris 21, and continuing this monitoring together is very important. So thanks so much, and appreciate also big hello to Papa in the audience, and he should be ready for hard questions coming at him. So now let's move to our next star speaker, Andrea. Andrea, the question that I have for you is that we really appreciate the work that you have done in ECLAC for conducting an in-depth interview with 12 national statistical offices. And the question that I have is, what were some of the key takeaways from your conversations with NSOs? Were there any surprising insights about enabling conditions or common barriers? Over to you, Andrea. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Sheida. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I will highlight some key points from our discussions with the National Statistical Offices, and it was in coordination with UNSD and also with ECLAC and UN Women. At the same time, I would like to invite you toward the end of the panel, of course, to share and complement us with your insights on the main opportunities or challenges for mainstreaming the gender perspective in the statistical production. I will start with the opportunities, key factors and practices that enable progress in integrating a gender perspective. First of all, I will go in deep in 4 specific things: coordination mechanism, training and capacity building, the design of gender-sensitive instruments, and the development of innovative tools for data collection and dissemination. Specifically, when we talk about coordination mechanism, it's the implementation of a structured consultation mechanism with users. I mean users and producers dialogues. So during the day, we were talking about how we are going to create a bridge between the producers and users. So here we have like one specific option to do this. But it's important to mention that during the needs assessment phase, it must be done. It's not just in the analysis stage. We need to co-create with them. We need to understand their needs, and with them, users and producers, we can define what are the specific needs. Training and capacity building, specifically building gender expertise through target and integrate training. Here, it's really important that the National Statistical Offices were talking that it's not only in the National Statistical Office. I mean, it's also in the National Statistical System. And it's not just with the statistician. So it includes different stages and a training strategy or a plan with these different levels. We'd include, for instance, enumerators, sampling size, if we want to go like deeper in coding, new techniques of analysis, also with communication. So it's important to have that this training for mainstreaming the gender perspective, it's not just in technical things, it's technical and conceptual training, because we need also awareness. So gender statistics, as you know, it's not just having the data, like sex disaggregate data, it's identify like how we are going to mainstreaming in the whole process. So training in the whole process, it's really important. Also the design of gender-sensitive instruments with an intersectional approach, and also the integration of specialized models. I mean, you were talking about time use, about violence, so it's important to identify how we can introduce these specific needs to understand, considering, of course, the different constraints that we have. Here, it was really important to identify, like also international guidelines help to the national statistical officers to identify the different steps that they need to follow. And also South-South cooperation to understand maybe best practices or lesson learnings that they can apply. Finally, the development of innovative tools for data collection and dissemination. We have been talking about dissemination, the use of data. So it's really important here to also highlight that they have a lot of efforts considering digital platforms as dashboards, maps, infographics, data sets. Also is understanding specifically the kind of users that they have. So it depends on the tool. Also, I would like to highlight the importance of the institutional environment and political commitment. So this involves strong political will and sustained commitment. It's really important here to understand like the existence of legal or political mandates requires the production and use of gender statistics. Also, it's really important the alignment with international frameworks. We always talk about SDGs, about Beijing Platform, but it's also important to identify like the national priorities and how we can align these specific efforts. It's really important also a strong commitment from senior leadership, but also government authorities to ensure funding. It's not just that they support and they would like to have information on with gender lens, it's how we are going to fund these efforts and how we are going to prioritize. So it's really important to identify these specific things. Finally, I will address the main challenges faced by the national statistical offices. And it's really interesting because also in the panel that we had before, we heard like a lot of good practices, but also challenges among Bangladesh, China, Brazil, Italy, and it's really related with the ones that we already identified in the interviews that we had. So the first one is limited technical capacity. So it's training and capacity building initiatives that are sporadic. They are not institutionalized. So it means it's one-shot training and that's it. But it's not just that. Also, we have a high staff turnover. So if we just create capacity building in one specific group of people and they left, we are not going to have the capacity building in the institution. So it's really important to have a plan to identify this. Also, technical and methodological changes. We know that the changes that we are addressing today, they are not the same that maybe the challenges that we are going to address in 10 years, in 5 years, because the technology changes, the different specific tools changes. So for the national statistical offices also identify what is changing, it's important to have training, understanding, conceptual tools to identify and also opportunities to be like in the same page of the different innovations that we have. Also, it's crucial to highlight specific difficulties in designing gender-sensitive questionnaires and in collecting specific data on sensitive topics. We were talking again about violence and how hard it's sometimes to have this kind of information. So we know that the different national statistical offices also need support and guidelines in survey designs on what questions do they need to include. So having specific people who know gender, it's really important to include in the teams that are working in the design of the tools. And finally, the absence of adequate legal and finance framework, it's connecting what I said before, and funding constraint. So I'm going to stop here, and I think that we do have a lot of efforts. We have a lot of we have been working in a lot of things, but we do have a lot of challenges. But I think that it's a great opportunity, like in these kind of spaces, we can learn from each other to identify and how to address in a better way. Thank you, Sheila, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. And findings, and one of the things that I really like is bringing out the voices of the NSOs into to collective voices of NSOs on understanding what the enablers and what are the challenges. So it's really valuable. And I'm glad also you mentioned that the need for innovation and really looking ahead rather than trying to fit our gender data systems to what used to be the requirements, but always look ahead and sort of see what are the opportunities for innovation. So that's wonderful, and I hope you will continue with this sort of interviews and getting inputs from our NSOs. So now moving ahead, I'm going to turn to you, Lucia, and the question that I have for you is that in ECLAC you have wonderful guidelines for mainstreaming the gender perspectives in statistical system and particularly statistical production. And the question that we have is, what are the most important elements of these guidelines for mainstreaming gender perspective, and how can these guidelines support long-term change across the data production cycle? Over to you, Lucia, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Seda, and it's for ECLAC to be here with you and share with international community and gender statistics all this knowledge, all this information. Obviously, and I will try to not repeat what Andrea, my colleague from the region, said, so I will start about the specific process that we have in the region, because I think it's important to see how in Latin America and the Caribbean we have this instance and these bridges that Andrea mentioned in two subsidiary or intergovernmental bodies that are part of the Secretariat of the United Nations and are located in the mandate of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. That are the Regional Conference on Women, where all the ministry machineries for the advancement of women meet every 3 years. And the other one is the American Conference on Statistics, that is the other intergovernmental body where all the directors, authorities, and main responsibles for the statistical national system twice or every 2 years meet and decide about these regional agendas. And I will start with, thank you. Since 1977, Latin America and the Caribbean, our region, has been adopting these cumulative agreements in the framework of the Regional Gender Agenda. That is a comprehensive roadmap that recognizes the critical role of the data in driving sustainable and gender equality in the framework of development. In this line, we have fostered a virtuous synergy between the Regional Conference on Women and the Statistical Conference of the Americas, that we think is absolutely key in order to mainstreaming gender in the statistical production. In this picture, I only want to show to you the different moments in the short history that these two subsidiary bodies connect and product guidelines or agreements together. And for example, if you see, we have this the creation of the Gender Equality Observatory. That's a very important space for the region in order to not only build and enhance capacities in the NSOs, but also to share and to link the NSOs with the machineries for women. I will highlight a few elements that are included in our last guidelines for mainstreaming gender perspective in statistical production. And I will not go in deep in details because, of course, you will have the publication available and you can read it in ECLAC's webpage. But I want to share with you the 8 phases that we study and we agreed with the NSOs of the region about where we have to work in order to ensure the gender perspective in the whole process of the production of official statistics. And of course, the first one is, like Andrea mentioned, the specific needs. And I think that is a very important exercise because it's typical to hear about how neutral can be the statistics, or that the statistics are formally collecting the data that is needed, but never thinking about that could be biased, or maybe we are not collecting the information that we need in order to change policies, in order to close gap, in order to close this divide between men and women. So this first phase is about to identify specific needs, consulting, of course, experts, but population group, and integrating different expertise and knowledge in the process. The second phase is about design, and design not only the instrument, but also all the process, the variable description, the way that we will collect information, the samples, for example, here we have a very challenging moment in the process, because if we want to know about women of, I don't know, different races, different ethnicity belongings, different migration status, we need to design a sample that enable us to have this kind of analysis. If not, if we stay with these samples that are not talking about the diversity of women, of course we would have a profound gender analysis. The third phase is about building the instrument for the collection, configure different tools, and of course test the different statistical tools that we will use. Of course, the moment of the collection, indeed, and not only for the specific gender statistic, but especially there, we need a collect moment very cuidado. It's like we have to care about the collection moment. If we go to household asking, for example, for time use, maybe people or the person that opened the door are not familiar to think about this own time. So we need to train very well the people who were going to the field in order to collect the information. Of course, when we talk about violence against women surveys, we need, of course, a lot of work in the collect process, in the collect moment. And for example, I remember I always put the same example about Mexico. Mexico collect information on violence against women and the household dynamics with only women teams and specialized in psychology, anthropology, or people that are trained in order to receive the information that we are asking when we go to households. The process, of course, of analyze the information, and I will go a little bit quick in order to have space in the last part of the panel, and the dissemination. Today we heard about Belize, that how important is the moment of the dissemination of the information, not only in order to put for the population, put for the citizenship the information on the table, but also to the other members of the agencies of the government to empower with this information and could appropriate it in the way of the work. And at the end, the evaluation of the whole process and the new planification of a new round or a new statistical event in order to detect the fails and the strengths of this whole process of mainstreaming gender perspective. So I think, yes, I will leave here in order to have a second moment. Thank you, Sheida.
You're the last speaker, a lot of pressure on you, but it's really on a very important and one of my favorite topics on civil registration and vital statistics and its importance for looking to that through a gender lens. And the question for you is, why is mainstreaming gender into CRVS is critical, and how is it being approached in practice? Over to you, Petra, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Sheida. And I hope what I'm going to say now is just going to be a taster, and you'll all want to hear much more and come to our side event on CRVS and gender straight after this session ends. So when people hear civil registration, they often think of paperwork or certificates. And when you have access to all essential identity documents, you probably don't think of it more than just a bureaucratic process. Actually, I'm sure everyone here who's traveled has had their birth registered, has access to a birth certificate, and maybe occasionally when you've needed it to get a passport and you're like, Mum, where's my birth certificate? You never really think about the fact that you've had your birth registered. But CRVS systems are really just much more than that. They really are the cornerstone of legal identity, a gateway to rights and services, and a source of vital statistics for policy making. And when these systems don't work well, it's women and girls who are often the ones most left behind. In Asia and the Pacific, the region where I work, we see very real barriers for women. Sometimes they're legal barriers, for example, needing a husband's signature or another male relative's presence for registration. Sometimes these barriers are social or cultural, such as lower priority given to registering girls in a timely manner, or women being less likely to have property or pensions, so there's fewer incentives to register their deaths. And sometimes it's simply practical. Women may not have the mobility, time, or money to reach an office to register an event, or they may not know the procedures. The result is that women and their children can end up without legal identity, which limits school enrollment, access to healthcare, inheritance rights, international travel, and social protection, among other factors. And as statisticians, we know that it also means women are undercounted and underrepresented in the very statistics that governments rely on for anything related to population and health. So in order to demonstrate gender mainstreaming, I'm going to talk about 3 key initiatives in this area. At ESCAP, we've been working with countries to make gender gaps and barriers visible through quantitative inequality assessments of CRVS systems. These studies have been carried out in a number of countries, including Bangladesh, Bhutan, Indonesia, Laos, and Fiji, and they examine whose births and deaths are not being registered and why. They look beyond national averages and drill down into the social and demographic characteristics of those being left behind. So to look at Fiji as an example, the analysis revealed a very striking pattern. Unmarried Itoke women, and Itoke is the main ethnic group on the island. So these women had the lowest rates of birth registration for their children. And this was due to a combination of stigma, administrative hurdles, and a lack of information. But with Fiji, we were actually quite fortunate with the assessment that we did, because the government was carrying out an incentive program during the period that we were studying. So the study also brought up something quite positive, and it showed that these women were actually benefiting the most from the government interventions and incentives. And their registration rates during this period where these incentives were introduced had increased significantly. So as a result of this assessment, the government of Fiji was shaping new targeted policies to reduce gender inequality in birth registration. And we see the intersection here between gender and ethnicity and marital status, based partially on the findings of this assessment. And this example illustrates 2 points. First, that gender and social norms shape CRVS outcomes in very concrete ways. And second, that when these barriers are identified and tackled head-on, progress can be rapid and transformative. So complementing these inequality assessments, ESCAP's also supported business process improvement exercises in several countries. And this involves mapping in detail the steps of the registration process with the local civil registrars and other stakeholders on the ground, and including also how data are turned into vital statistics. So this is very much, we bring together the people who are at the coalface at the local level, and these people know exactly what's going on, how things are working in practice, because you might hear at the federal level, at the capital level, that things are working in one way, but in actual fact, for example, women might not be allowed to register, even if legally they are being allowed. If culturally it's not acceptable, that might not be happening in practice. So going through this exercise really allows governments to see where women might, in practice, face bottlenecks or barriers when it comes to registration, and then to streamline those procedures and processes in ways that make the system more inclusive. And then to make sure this evidence feeds into action, I'm just going to speak about third initiative. We're building capacity through the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Applied Research Training Program, which ESCAP runs with our sister agency in Africa, the UN Economic Commission for Africa. And with this program, we work with CRVS practitioners to develop evidence that can be used to improve the policy and programs, and we strongly encourage them to apply a gender lens to their research, even if it's not gender specifically related to gender, which we also encourage. But everything to do with CRVS can also be analyzed using a gender lens as well. And we strongly encourage proposals that focus on gender inequality. And I'm happy to share that actually we just opened up applications for cohort 3. And if you come to the side event, I'll put up a slide with more information about how to apply. So to summarize, it's clear that CRVS is not gender neutral by default. But with the right evidence, tools, and reforms, it can be made more inclusive and more effective. And when we address the barriers for women, the whole system improves. It's not just about women, it improves for everyone. And we move closer to achieving universal legal identity and stronger gender data systems. So thank you, and back to you, Shada.
Thank you, Petra. Thanks, really appreciate your perspectives and also the guidance. Just wanted to put a word out there that there's going to be a CRVS symposium focused on gender issues that's going to be taking place in just a little while on October 15 to 17 in Nairobi, hosted by UNFPA, UNICEF, Government of Kenya, and a number of other organizations. So it would be really great to tune in. And as Petra said, there are lots of issues that's going to be addressed in terms of how do we build in gender lens into the life cycle for CRVS systems. So thank you so much for that. So we are short of time. I was going to, in fact, go back to the panelists with a short question for each one, but it looks like maybe the best thing would be to open up the session now to the audience for any questions or comments that you may have, and then I will go back to the panelists for the response and also a quick question from me. So let's see, is there any questions in the audience that you would like for this amazing star panelist to address?
I have one question, if I may.
Please go ahead.
So my name is Gogita Dodradze. I represent the National Statistics Office of Georgia. Now, before asking my questions, I would like to extend warm greetings to our remote chair, Shada Badi, and express my appreciation for your leadership of this session. And we hope to have the opportunity to welcome you in person next time. So I have two questions for UNSD and Paris 21. Question for Maria Isabel. Given UNSD's coordination role across UN agencies, what do you see as the key opportunities for NSOs to better leverage regional and international partnership to address persistent gaps in gender statistics? And another question for Sophie. Based on Paris 21 experience in supporting statistical capacity development globally, what innovative financing mechanisms or partnerships have proven most effective in ensuring sustainable investment in gender statistics, particularly for middle-income countries facing limited resource priorities? Thank you very much.
Thanks for that question. Going back to our panelists, you heard the specific questions for you, Sophie and Maria Isabel.
Thank you, Gogita. Thank you for the question. Yes, it's not only a UNSD in the coordination role, but it's actually the interagency and expert group on gender statistics who has this role given, mandated by the Commission, of which you are since yesterday the chair. So what we have seen that really is very effective in building capacity for strategic partnerships is really South-South cooperation, study visits from one country and sharing their learning experiences, their journey. As you were saying in this morning, that the journey of Georgia demonstrates that progress is possible from basic and with incremental improvements. That is very valuable information for the fellow countries to learn from. So this is for us at the global level, this is the key, South-South cooperation, and obviously with the regional commissions that are the partners that are closer to countries. Thank you.
Sophie?
Thank you, Gogita, for this great and always challenging question. So I think I'll mention three mechanisms / partnerships. So the first is a set of guidelines that we produced at Paris 21, which isn't specific to gender data, but they are budgeting, costing, and financing guidelines, which try to link financing specifically to the National Strategy for the Development of Statistics. So it's sort of a forward-looking and making sure that in each stage of the planning, the costing and budgeting is considered, and also includes some kind of steps towards external financing. The second is the Clearinghouse, which is an initiative that we work with Open Data Watch on, which analyzes global financing trends. We also have a specific gender data channel, so sort of looks at those fluctuations, but also looks at specific country and donor profiles. So the idea is then to start to move towards a matching between supply, who is financing what, and demand, what are the greatest gaps at country level. And then the third point is really what I think is one of the strongest tools when it comes to financing, which is a little bit more on the advocacy side, and that is just showing the impact, which is something that we are, if I may say so, very, very, very bad at as a community. There are some champions out there, but really if we're not showing the connection between gender data and gender equality, there's very little we can do to advocate to reach a wider number of donors or a wider number of funders also internally within a country to say, this is not about funding data, this is about funding gender equality. So that would be my plea, I guess, is to really just leverage impact, document impact, speak to users, how do they use it? And really use that as an advocacy tool. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Sophie. I think that's really, really good answer. I hope it's challenging question, as you said, but and it's got many, many dimensions that we could be addressing. So thanks for that answer. And link to policy and measuring impact is very difficult, but it's a must do. So it's one of the items that maybe we can emphasize more in our collective work going forward. Let's see, are there any other questions from the audience? Otherwise, I will have a question for our star panelists. The question that I have for you is that, and I want to sort of see if we can give it a sort of a positive spin as what is the one concrete action that you believe can have an immediate impact across different contexts for our building better enabling environment? So going to our panelists, I thought maybe we start from you, Petra, that if you very quickly in 1 minute to take us through what you think would be that one immediate impact that we could have. Over to you, Petra.
I think that what we really need is to overcome some of the, I think, and going to CRVS, it's evidence. And I think that I'll refer back to those three initiatives that I mentioned. What links them all together is that they are about generating evidence. And I think that if we can institutionalize these kind of approaches, then they can really lead to the institutionalization of using evidence, because they feed back to one another and they become part of the way that the CRVS systems will function everywhere.
Thank you, Petra. Couldn't agree more. Over to you, Lucia. That same question.
Thanks, Shayla. Well, of course, institutionalize, we think it's absolutely key. And I will add capabilities. It is essential to strengthen technical. In ECLAC, we use these acronyms top capabilities. Technical, operational, political, and prospective capabilities. That is, maybe less, we talk less about it, but it's absolutely crucial in order to produce a statistic with gender prospective capabilities tell us about what the information we will need in order to make policies in advance to, for example, to go over poverty. But in the case of care, that is my specific topic in ECLAC, see, for example, the demographic pyramids, the information about how we are aging and the needs about elderly is absolutely crucial in order to take decisions with solid official information. So, Shayda, I have to say what we have to do is to strengthen the capability of our teams in order to have better technical capabilities, operational capabilities, political capabilities, and perspective in order to make the best decisions for each country, for the population. That is the end, because the statistical in itself, of course, are valuable in the academics and the in-depth analysis, but we are talking about official statisticals in order to transform this data and information in knowledge in decision making for in our countries. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and I really love that answer for focusing on capabilities. Andrea, over to you, same question.
Thank you so much, Shayda. I would like to highlight the importance of regional and national communities of practices or institutionalized working groups. Regarding specific topics, if we want to talk about a specific technical thing, we must create a space for dialogues to define the best practices, the different lessons that we have, such as the Gender Statistic Working Group on the Statistical Conference of the Americas that we have in the LAC region. So for mutual learning and exchange of experiences and methodologies. So I think that it's really important. And at the same time, in the countries, developing training plans and data use strategies. I think that it's really important, not just one specific thing, while we can do like different things. And I would like to underline the importance of the international coordination at the global, regional, and national level. From UN Women, through our flagship gender statistic program, Women Count, we have supported and strengthened these efforts related on gender statistics. And in the next phase, as Papa mentioned, we will be supporting this in coordination with you, users, producers, international organizations, because our commitment is the key. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Andrea, and hold on to that amazing passion and energy that you have. We really need that in addition to bringing everybody together. Over to you, Sophie, for that question.
Shayda. So I'm going to call today for a shift in perspective. I think for a long time, the National Statistical Office has been treated in isolation in many respects. We tried to solve problems within the national statistical system with purely technical fixes, producing more gender data, upskilling, better data management, more human and financial resources. These are all important, but there's only so far you can go with these fixes alone. The National Statistical Office may be independent, but it's not isolated. It's part of a wider system, a wider political economy. So my one call would be to acknowledge that wider political economy. Look at how other influencers and actors shape the National Statistical Office. This includes addressing wider gender mainstreaming challenges, engaging more with other actors, working with political priorities. By acknowledging these wider factors, the technical fixes that we introduce will then be more efficient and more impactful. So I'll also leave that as a bit of a taster for one of the topics that we'll be including in our launch tomorrow of the new report, Data-Driven Policymaking, the Politics, People and Practices Behind Data Use. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sophie, and thanks for bringing us to that wider ecosystem and how we can fit better within that wider ecosystem and not get lost in it, but to really to take advantage of it and to build on it. So last person, Maria Isabel, you had the same question, and then we go to closing.
Thank you, Shada. Actually, I'm really glad that Sophie mentioned that, because mine is slightly related or maybe complementary. For me, it's modernization, really riding the wave and not having isolation, not seeing in isolation the issues of gender statistics, but really riding the wave towards digital in the whole NSO, in the whole NSS, and with a whole government approach. And secondly, which is also related, the integration of different data sources. Each one gives us a part of the picture, but all of them really do really make up a data ecosystem that needs to be integrated and understood from the different angles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Maria Isabel. And I promised you having star speakers, and I think we have delivered. We have really 5 amazing speakers and addressing very complex issues. So in closing, I just wanted to thank our panelists, but also take note that we've really seen a decade of progress, a lot of work that has been achieved, a lot of results that has been delivered. And through these discussions of enablers, we see that not only we have the understanding of what needs to be done, but we also know exactly where the challenges are. I was thinking that this session might actually bring more challenges, because we really have a strong headwind that we are dealing with and a lot of pushbacks in the field. But I'm so glad that we see that we're looking at the positive side and sort of see how we can use the enablers and how we can use the strength that we have gained in the last 10 years to be able to address these headwinds and these pushbacks. So I'm really glad that the partnership that's been mentioned, the guidelines and the tools and the better understanding that's been developed for building the better gender data system, we could really, I'm very positive, and I think we could really manage the challenges ahead. So join me to thank this amazing group, and also to thank the organizers for this event, and continuing with the Global Forum for Gender Statistics, for us to continue sharing our understanding and the challenges that we are facing. All the best to you, and a huge, huge thanks to our hosts. Thank you again.
Thanks to the session's participants. Now I would like to remind you that the side event organized by UNESCAP Statistics Division will be start from 5:15 to 6:30. This session will focus on how civil registration and vital statistics systems can be used to close gender gaps in legal identity and in the production of vital statistics. It will highlight innovative practices, country experiences, and opportunities for stronger partnerships to make CRVS system more gender responsive. We invite all interested participants to join this important discussion. Also, I would like to remind you that this evening at 7 p.m., the Geostat is kindly hosting a reception for all forum participants on the 30th floor at Zim Bar. It will be a wonderful opportunity to continue our conversation in an informal setting and to enjoy Georgian hospitality. We look forward to seeing you there. Now we will have a break of about 45 minutes, and after it we will continue with first side event. Thank you.